All right, welcome back to the channel, everyone. It has been a while. I have not been uploading in the past few weeks as I've been busy, but I'm back. So these are the things I'll be going through today. First is basically the self-hosted CICD infrastructure design, the configuration of how the Gitea, the self-hosted version control system, is implemented, and how GitHub is used as a backup to basically kind of like an offsite backup to push mirror the repositories that are being self-hosted in my Homelab in case my Homelab gets wrecked, right? And of course, last but not least, I'll be showing a demo of how the secure CI/CD pipeline is being done using this glance start page. Basically, what I have is a little home start page dashboard monitoring system I have to see at a glance that what services are health, whether or not the services that are running are healthy and everything. And I have this Proxmox data center manager that's being run, and I'm gonna show you how this is source control and how the CI/CD pipeline, everything is done to push and deploy into this particular dashboard. So let's get right into it. Now, this is the design of the self-hosted CI/CD infrastructure I have in my home lab. Basically, if you're looking at the architecture of it, this is me, and this is kind of like my laptop, and I have this Gitea repository, basically with a URL with a reverse proxy that points to the Git repository itself. So the URL here is git.rootware.cc, and what it has is this is where all of my code is hosted, and there is a runner called Gitea Actions Runner that is hosted on Proxmox in a virtual machine. So what this does is whenever I push the code via a secure SSH to the repository, it will also pick up the CI/CD pipeline configuration that's within the source code, and the primary runner will basically run all the linting or testing if I have any, and deploy the new configurations into the end users, basically the end points, the URLs that are being hosted internally. So I have like a traffic, and then I have like a start page that I have, and there's a media server that I also have that is also version controlled. Last but not least, so this is the GitHub repository. So what this does is it is a push mirror over secure authentication with a fine-grained access control user credentials. So that's kind of the whole environment of it. Now I'm gonna move into how the Git repository is set up for the next steps. So this is the Proxmox helper script that I have that the community has created. So if I want to self-host a Gitea repository, I will search for that, and I'll just do like a copy and paste. But of course, before you do any copy pasting, make sure that the script itself is coming from an actual trusted source. Make sure to double check the URL. Make sure to go through what the script is actually doing. So for myself, I've looked into that prior to this to not waste any time. So this is how you can get a Git instance up and running. And yeah, so this is actually the GitHub repository that I have, a Gitea repository that is self-hosted within my home lab. So next part, I'm gonna show you how some of the configuration is done on this self-hosted Git repository. Because if it's a first setup, when you actually browse to the URL, you will go through some of the configuration. You will have to go through the configuration menu, asking you to like asking you and prompting you. The Gitea itself is asking you prompting you to choose what kind of database you would like to use and where is the persistent data source going to be for all of the source code repositories and everything. So that's the next part I'm going to go. I'm going to SSH into the box itself. Okay, so I've basically popped a shell into my Gitea repository box, and this is the configuration of basically the configuration of the Gitea that you saw earlier, right? So what this does is, so definitely for yourself, if you don't have like any SSL certificates that you have installed, you can do like a disable for that. The path to the Gitea database, where this is where all of the credentials and user credentials and everything is stored. For me, what I did is I modified the SSH domain and the domain itself to point to my fully qualified domain name because I have a reverse proxy and a DNS service running. So this is how I will access the URL itself, right? And besides that, there's not much going on. That's just kind of like some of the configuration that you just need to take note of. And where this sits is actually sitting at etc Gitea when the Gitbox the Gitea is provisioned on in the Proxmox. So this is where you can come and find out more about the app.ini and do further changes once you have finished configuring from the web portal when you first visit Gitea URL. So that's on the Gitea box itself. The next part is on the runner side of things, because the Gitea, right? Let's kind of look into this repository for a moment. So there is a Gitea workflow that the CICD workflow that I've written, and of course using Gemini and some of the ChatGPT tools to basically how I can do continuous integration and deployment to the end service, basically the end service, which is the start page from here, right? So the definition should be similar to how you would do on the GitHub, GitLab. This should be quite similar and standard across all of the CI/CD tools. But one thing we need to take note about Gitea is Gitea does not necessarily run this as an action. So if you look into the action itself, there are a few actions that I've already ran in the past. The server itself does not run your CI/CD pipeline. What runs is a separate runner, the action runner that you need to stand up. So in order to do that, right, you basically need to create a new virtual machine. For easier and simple purpose, I have actually created a guide using Gitea runner docker compose file. So basically, you just need to follow this instruction, clone the repository, get into it, set the environment variables that are listed within the sample.env file, right? And download the Gitea runner binary to generate binary into that virtual machine to generate the latest configuration file. So this is the commands that you just need to run. You generate the configuration, and then you just run docker compose up, and that will get you up and running for the Gitea. How it looks like within the shell, I'm going to show you right now. So git runner, and yeah, basically I'm inside the virtual machine. I'll go into git runner. So these are all the artifacts that you need to run the actual Git runner on a Docker container. So this is the Docker Compose file, which I have shown you earlier in the GitHub repository. And let's do a list. So this one, act runner, is the binary file that I actually downloaded from the Gitea's repository. You need to download that yourself, right? And config.yaml is basically the configuration that gets generated by the action runner. Most of the time, for myself, I just keep everything as default. I didn't change anything in the config.yaml. I just created it for the sake of like actually running the container. So if I do a docker ps, yep, so there is I think there is a runner running here. Let me quickly check if the actions runner is working correctly. Okay, so this is currently offline right now. So what I need to do is I need to go and just run it on the actions runner. If I just run that, it will create. So there will be a Gitea runner that's running in the background. And if I go back and refresh here, is idle. It should. So the thing is, once I commit and push into the code repository in one of the repositories here, it will actually pick up and run the actions. So that's kind of how the Gitea and the Gitea runner interacts with each other. Oh, last but not least, one more thing. Of course, to download the binary, right, you kind of need to see what kind of architecture the binary is going to run on. For me, if I'm not wrong, I actually downloaded the Linux AMD for the virtual machine. So it should be AMD 64 to run. Don't go. I mean, like, you might sometimes if you're not unsure, you might have downloaded the wrong architecture, a CPU architecture, and you might run into issues when you run the Docker Compose up. So just something to take note of here. And so that's everything from this perspective. So how the Git and Gitea and Gitea runner interact and deploy it. Let's get into the mirrored Git repositories to kind of have like an offsite backup of my CICD infrastructure. So, all right. So this is the repository. Basically the start page repository that I've internally self-hosted. If we look into settings, the repository settings, and this is where we can come and configure the mirror settings on the repository. So this is basically to do a push mirror synchronization with GitHub to have GitHub as an offsite backup. So the way it works is you will probably first need to go and create the repository on GitHub itself, an empty repository, right? So if I go and navigate to this page, there's already this is basically an earlier pre-created repository that I have, and we need to go and grab a fine-grained personal access token. You can come to this URL here and within GitHub. You need to sign in as yourself, right? Choose the personal access tokens, and from here, this is where you can generate a new token. For me, I've already generated in advance. And of course, in terms of like the repository access, this is the fine-grained access control that I was talking about. This personal access token that is generated can only do read and write access to these 3 particular repositories. So because I only have 3 repositories using GitHub as a offsite backup in this case. So repository access, basically, yeah, so this is the, so there's a read and write access for all the commits and everything. It should only be for select repositories. So here, not the all repository, only for select repositories. And this is where you can select more repositories here to do read and write to. So these are all the permissions that I've granted on that personal access token. Then you need to copy that personal access token. Let me just go back. Yeah, so here it is. You basically need to go and copy that personal access token and actually also put it here to do synchronization. I think it should be, yeah, so this will be the username and the password. You need to give it here. And of course, for the intervals, depending on how much you want the synchronization to be done, you can put it here. If I'm not wrong, what I have done is I think I also do like sync whenever the commits are pushed, and of course every 8 hours interval. So yeah, that's kind of everything on the having an offsite mirrored GitHub backup repositories. Now let's get into the demonstration of the whole CICD pipeline run and the push mirror of itself. So yeah. All right, we are in the source code of the start.rootware.cc repository. So I've basically cloned it locally, and just to make sure that this is pointing to the correct Git repo. So this is the self-hosted Git repository that I have. Then what I have is this Proxmox data center manager. I basically want to add one more check here in the infrastructure side. So I'm gonna basically gonna add this in here. Save status commit -a added PDM to monitor. Right. Then once I do git push, it will push to the Git repository here. So you can see that the commit and push is already being picked up by runner. That's the actions runner, and now it's actually running. Setting up the job here. So this is the part of the format checking pipeline. So this is the job that it's doing. See site administration. Check that. Okay, so it is running. It's active. There's an actual job that's being run. All right, we can see that some of the CI tasks have already passed. Oh, one more thing before I forget. So if we look into the CI pipeline, mainly in the deployment stage, right? There is a setup SSH private key with the Git CI key. So what this is doing is actually reading from the deploy keys, if I'm not wrong, or was it in? There it is. So in the secrets, you actually need to give like a Git CI key. So what this does is the connectivity from the runner to the box itself to deploy the new configuration. So that's that particular secret that you need to set up in the pipeline to make sure that the deployment pipeline actually works. So this is where you can give the key, the Git CICD key here, and this is the environment variable where it will actually pick up that SSH key to remote into the server itself to deploy the new configuration. So this is what it is actually doing in the deploy stage. So let's get back to the actions. Okay, so we can see that it has completed the job. It's done done a restart of the service. Let's do a refresh of it. Right. So here we can see there's a Proxmox data center that's being monitored. You can actually see that it's up and running in here. So yeah, that's kind of a demonstration of how the CI/CD pipeline works. Let's also take a look at the mirrored repository on my GitHub page. Let's see. Okay, so we can see that once there's a committed push in the self-hosted repository, right, added PDM to monitor, it actually also mirrors the self-hosted infrastructure that I have in my Homelab. So yeah, that's everything I wanted to kind of like give you a whirlwind tour of. I didn't really delve deeper into the the other aspects, like making multi-user interface for this. But for myself, because I'm the only user using this, I don't have like things like organizations to have like an actual proper identity access management and access controls in place for this, because it's just a self-hosted service and I'm the only one using it. So yeah, I didn't really delve much deep into it, but I just gave you a whirlwind tour of how the infrastructure is set up in my Homelab. That is everything I wanted to show you. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, again, if this video helped you in any way, please give it a like and subscribe for more content in the future. I do not use AI to come up with this, so these videos do take a while to, create and upload. So your like and subscription means a lot to me. And that is it. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great holidays and Merry Christmas. Bye bye.